Hello, good morning and a very warm welcome to Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios here in Dawson Road in Colombo. And joining me this morning are my guests, a Member of Parliament, Mr. Vidura Vikramanayake. Good morning and...
Very good morning to you.
And thank you for being on our network. It's a great pleasure.
Great pleasure.
And also joining us this morning is Mr. Rusaripala Tenakon, a senior banker and a trade unionist. A very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Faraz.
Perhaps Dr. N.M. Pereira knows more about you than we do.
I think so.
What I would like to say, ask you, Mr. Rusaripala, is yesterday was National Pensioners' Day. Are you happy with the lot of the pensioners in this country?
Far from that, Faraz. There are many things to be achieved for the pensioners in this country. When you classify the people as pensioners, I think they are all taking into account those who are drawing a salary. Mm-hmm. But pensioners, there are so many pensioners outnumbering the people who are getting a pension, who are not getting anything in their retired life. Mm-hmm. So therefore, when you look into this issue of pensioners, they must also take into account and consideration the large numbers of lakhs and lakhs of people who are destitute, in a position of destitute nature, due to they are not engaging in any economically active role in the society. Mm-hmm. And they have no income, no way of living, and there is nobody to look after them. And over and above everything, there is no proper social security system in place in the country to take care of them.
But we have Wi-Fi.
Yes, we have megalopolis, Wi-Fi, highways, all these big things are there. But it is also good in that list of priority to have some place for the destitute as well.
And that seems to be at odds with the perception that Sri Lanka and all Sri Lankans have a penchant for looking after their elderly. And that seems to me to be at odds.
Yeah, I mean, very olden days, it was left like that. You know, that's a matter that was left for people to be, handled by themselves. They must look after their own people, the old aged people. But it's no more. The concept in the world over is now that it is a duty of the society. It's a duty of the governments to do something to look after them.
I do wish people, before they cast their vote, will think about all these matters and then take the middle path and choose responsibly in Parliament. And talking about Parliament, and especially about talking in Parliament, what was all this business, Mr. Vikramanayake, yesterday in Parliament? Rather unparliamentary language and so on.
Exactly.
What's happening in our Parliament? Why is this happening?
I think this has been continuing for some time, but I don't see in any way this should not be the proper conduct within a parliament. As parliamentarians, all I see is there's a saying, especially a prime minister. Prime minister of a country should not be using this type of language. That's my personal belief, and he's losing one thing. He's losing his self-respect as well as the respect by the others.
Has he lost his marbles? Is what my granny would ask me.
I think so. If you may call him, not him, but yes, this situation we used to call bull in a china shop. But he's a buffalo in a china shop.
Well, yes, I mean, it's bad, isn't it? We had one parliamentarian who was hit on his shoulder and asked to shut up and listen. We had another chap who was reminded that he came into Parliament through one party and therefore he should shut up and sit down. And then there was a third person, because this is a family people's channel, I can't possibly say what he said to the third person. But I rather suspect that Mr. Vasudeva Nanayakkara was rather put out at the time. And so it doesn't all go well, does it?
Yes, yes.
It's how can we set an example when our leaders are doing this? And is there any sort of medical check that one needs before entering Parliament?
Not to my knowledge, but I think it should be institute, because for me, there, as in other countries, whatever the position that you are supposed to take up, you have to go through a psychological test. Whatever the position.
I see.
So, likewise, for the parliament also, this should be a must. That is, with the things ongoing.
Yeah.
This should be a must, as you suggest. Yes, this should be a must. I totally agree with that, because if we are to continue the parliamentarians as of now, then what is going to happen to this country?
Especially, because leaders I liken them to people in the same category as airline pilots, ships captains, people who have very critical and high-pressured roles. And therefore, I think that it's almost incumbent to have a psychological test. It's obviously that chap who deliberately crashed the aircraft into some mountain some months ago, he clearly failed that test, and he shouldn't have been flying in an aircraft, let alone piloting it. And so, yes, perhaps the parliamentarians will consider giving themselves a psychological test of some sort before taking up office, and especially before going before the president, taking the oath. On the same veins, Mr. Rusripal, what is happening to this hedging matter?
Well, it's a very timely question that you asked, because the little information I have is, I was also pondering whether this matter has been also laid to rest, like so many others. But there is very good news for us. I think the things are moving in the right direction, in the correct way, and the FCID is going on at a stretch to, in pell-mell rather, to question the necessary people, and long statements are being recorded. And I was very happy to hear this, because one of my friends who was a senior banker, colleague rather, who went to give evidence, told me, I'm very happy that it appears to be that they are doing something or trying to do something serious about the hedging matter. And what I heard was, coming from him in this issue, a lot of people who are honest, straightforward, forthright were victimized, whereas those who are branded as, and with a lot of evidence as culprits in the issue, are given high places.
Well, as you know, I have various sort of sources who contact me from time to time, and that's all part of the work of investigative journalism. But one of my sources, rather reliable, disclosed to me that there is a statement has been made to the FCID that there was a large sum of money that a banker had called on yet another banker and asked that banker to ready it and arrange the payment of 100 million rupees to a minister. Now, no doubt those details will come out soon, but it's encouraging that people are making these statements.
Yes.
Don't you think?
Yes, I think so. I also heard about this matter some time ago, but I wish and I believe when they are giving evidence, they will be very straightforward and they will come out with all these things.
I'd like to point out that 100 million rupees at the time of the hedging matter was over $1 million. Something that some people won't earn in a lifetime of hard work.
Yeah, well, I'm not too sure about the amounts that were offered, but I certainly know that an effort has been made by a banker, or rather the boss with another subordinate officer, but it's never materialized because this subordinate officer falls into the category of forthright degree. So he did not want to do that, so he withdrew, and he was victimized.
But it's good that there are some people willing to blow the whistle and blow it loud and clear. But in all this, we must bear in mind and we must recognize that there were people in the media who were willing and able to take the risk, ignoring the consequences. And in the matter of the hedging transaction, it brings to my mind the Iron Lady, Frederica Jans, who was then the head of, at the point when that paper was outspoken. And of course, Frederica had to leave the country. She hasn't come back yet, despite the greater freedom of media freedom that we enjoy. And at the time, they took great risks to highlight these matters. And I think we need to recognize that these people did an important job at the time. And now that we have Mr. Wickramanayake, parliamentarian, with us, what is happening to the bond? Has it been swept under these very thick carpets in Parliament?
Looks like. Well, this is the order of the day. I should say, if when the other party does something wrong, everybody, the opposition or the government, they say that okay, now you have done this. But when we are doing it, we cannot call it's a mistake or that's something wrong. How are we going to conduct ourselves in the parliament or in a country, state of affairs? That is very important. But are we doing that?
First, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Honorable Sir. Now, isn't that a reason for people to be content with? Because when they say that others also have done it, so don't you get a right to repeat the same thing?
Why
previously they did it.
Why do you want to repeat the same mistake?
It's if you brand it as a mistake only, but if you just consider it as a historical piece to be repeated, well,
yeah, that is what has been happening. That is what is happening. Others commit, when they do it, it's a mistake. But when we do it, it's not a mistake.
Well, it's all terribly unacceptable, because Mr. Wickramasinghe, as the Prime Minister, I think this is his 4th time round, isn't it? An unprecedented record in that respect. But it's absolutely incumbent that he gets to the bottom of this thing. We have a situation where the governor of the central bank, Mr. Mahendran, who is a foreigner who's been imported here to do a senior public official's job, has admitted on air, and we have it on record and on the tape, safely locked up, that he took responsibility for not letting the rest of the primary dealers know what happened, that the 1 billion had moved 10 billion. That is the start of all this. There is no need to go anywhere else. That is the start.
Yeah.
And if the beginning is flawed, it is bound to be flawed right throughout. No amount of good thereafter will correct that. This bond needs to be cancelled, and Mr. Wickramasinghe, I hold him personally responsible if this bond matter is not resolved soon. His statement in Parliament yesterday that no matter what, those transfers at the central bank will go ahead, indicates to me a terribly autocratic type of behavior, completely undemocratic, which brings me to this other thing. Well, what's the name of our country? That's a full name. Do you know?
I thought it is the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka.
No. It's the undemocratic parliament that we have here. It's absolutely terrible that this thing is being swept under the carpet. The perpetrators are being allowed to get away with it and enjoy the undoubted financial gains that they've made. And whenever we bring this subject up, they go on to what happened in the previous administration. Well, that's fine. Investigate them. You've got plenty of things. You've got the FCID, you've got the CID, you've got the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, you've got everything, God knows what. You can investigate them, nobody's stopping them. But what about what we have in hand? Isn't it true?
There's a little unfortunate thing about this whole thing, you know. I mean, the Honorable Prime Minister, whatever he said and done, he carries a very good reputation in the country of being honest and forthright and, you know, being a person straightforward. But I'm sorry to say that this particular incident has dented that feeling. And even the president mentioned this, you know, in calling him one day. That was his in one of his speeches. He said, he made it categorical statement. He said that, well, this issue is bad for you, for your name. For that sake, at least ask this person to resign from his post. He never ordered him to be taken out. I think that's in line with His Excellency, the manner in which he does things, you know, very carefully selected words, and that's the way how he put it. But it means a lot.
But all these niceties, Mr. Vikrunaka, all these nice words and politically correct behavior is costing the people of this country money.
True.
That's the bottom line.
True. I totally agree with you. Nice words will not help this nation to move ahead. What we need is the nation to move forward. We are not moving forward. That is my feeling. If we are committing the same mistakes and everything is being forgiven because that person is known to you, he was brought by you, he is a person closer to you, is that a kinship that does it matter when it comes to the administration?
And I think it sends the wrong type of message. For example, let's say in a hypothetical case that a drug dealer is being investigated by the police, and I would be horrified if I saw that this drug dealer was dining and wining with the chief of the local police station that was heading that investigation. If I saw the two of them at the local hotel, I would be absolutely horrified. It sends the wrong message. And it is in the same, I mention this because it is in this same context that I mention it. We have reports that the governor of the central bank was on holiday with the Prime Minister and others on the east coast of Sri Lanka very recently. Now, you know, if you're being investigated, you're being investigated, and you need to be away from each other, however close you may well be, because it sends the wrong image out. Now, of course, if you don't care about these images, then so be it. But it sends the wrong message out. And when they go back and rely and hang on the straws of what the previous administration is alleged to have done, then it's indicative that there is something to hide. And all I can say is the carpets in Parliament must be pretty thick, because so much is being swept underneath it over the years. Is that what you think, Rusri?
It's becoming so much that they are unable to cover it anymore.
Indeed.
They are bulging out.
Indeed.
So this is the situation. But, well, far as I have another school of thought about this whole matter, I think the Honorable Prime Minister and the Governor Central Bank incumbent, they have been friends. He admits it openly. So maybe he is required in the country for other purposes other than the role of the Governor of the Central Bank. Because, you know, this country, we hear or we see, we observe, is trying to go ahead of Singapore. Ahead of Singapore. I think virtually everybody in the international scenario, they have started branding this as another second Singapore, because they have seen, not you and I, what we see, that everything, our cabinets, our portfolios, the separation of duties, all that is in the Singapore model, they say. And I was wondering how we can sort of get to the bottom of it and to see whether there is any truth in this statement.
Well, the Singapore model is also very undemocratic politically.
They say so.
Indeed, well, it is. There's no two words about it.
But the point I want to make is, Singapore has gone through a lot of difficulties before they came to these stages. Whereas we are still going through those things. So how can we supersede Singapore?
We are clutching at straws.
Yes.
Mr. Vikramanayake, what is this business about Mr. Wickramasinghe saying that no matter what, this 200 odd people, the transfers of the central bank will go on? So then why have a parliament and why have all these checks and balances?
At that moment, Mr. Paras, I also thought the same thing. Why should we sit in the parliament? And millions being spent for an election?
Exactly.
For what?
This is merely a rubber stamp. We can have a rubber stamp made up.
This is a mere rubber, as you said, this is a mere rubber stamp. And mind you, the losers coming to the parliament, those who were lost.
Yes, that's yet another sad situation.
So, see, and not only as a member of the parliament, but as a cabinet ministers, some of them.
Yes. Very
undemocratic. Now, these are the underlying principles of democracy. I think a person of caliber of, I don't say the president, because Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe, he is a learned person, and he has every right to say that he knows everything about democracy. He can say that, but yes. I don't know whether he is practicing it. That is a different issue.
Well, he practiced it to a point. He lectured Mrs. Bandaranaike on what Westminster-style politics was, and that's in Hansard. I'm not making this up. So,
yes.
So he's aware, at least he's aware.
He's aware of that, those things, but this is the most unfortunate situation in the parliament history. But I personally believe that this should not be repeated. This should not be repeated in the parliament under the disguise of having the premiership. That is my view, and that is my stand.
What did the Honourable Speaker have to say about this
he was just mum on that. Then I could remember yesterday, Honourable Veeravansa, he said, Mr. Vimal Veeravansa, he said that this should be expunged.
It should actually.
But that was not heeded by the Speaker.
So
I'm very sorry about it.
Does it mean that that they want it to remain in the Hansard? These words?
It will. It might.
My God. It is a very, very serious thing. I thought there was agreement. Generally, when these loose statements are made, they have some consensus to get them expunged. But in this case, if they are to remain, that means that they were deliberately made and they want it to go into history of this country.
Well, to keep it historically in the minds of the people and within the grasp of the people, so that they can remember forever and a day how bad this situation is right now.
Or how it was.
How it was.
Yeah.
We need to make a collection of all these different statements that have been made and put it on the internet, so that whenever somebody wants to be reminded of where democracy is going, all they have to do is log on to that, whatever channel it is. I hope somebody somewhere does that.
You will have a new page, I believe.
Well, we can have a new site,
yes,
undemocraticparliament.lk. Perhaps.
Pardon me for interrupting. The history, the case is, Hansard is for the history to refer.
Yeah.
But the whole nation knows what he uttered.
Yeah.
So there is even expunging or whatever it is. I don't see any person in the parliament calling this type of these words pardon me, Mr. Paras, I felt I have been in the parliament nearly for 6 years. For these 6 years, the students asking me, is this the parliament you are representing? Yesterday that happened. There were some students from Horana who were sitting in the gallery, public gallery, and I met them in the parliament, and they asked me, is this the normal pattern of behavior?
Very sad.
Very serious.
They have an obligation to set the right example. And if the public gallery had children yesterday, well, I hate to begin to think what went on in those minds. It's absolutely disgraceful. And I'm rather wondering whether after so long in the opposition and having lost election after election after election, whether this has anything to do with with those statements in Parliament yesterday. We're very, very sad indeed.
And all of us should be very seriously concerned about it. It's not a matter just to ponder over something happening, but this has been repeated, I believe.
Repeated.
Because recently...
These are what you call, Mr. Rusripala, serial offences.
You call it anything, but it's intriguing, how this is done, when the opposition rises to a point of order or some issue, the best under democracy, what we can say, we are not parliamentarians, perhaps Mr. Vikramanayake would know much better, but you see, the right thing for the people expect them to do is permit them to raise their views.
Indeed. Well, that's what democracy is all about. We'll discuss democracy and other serious matters, continue to discuss them on this network, as we always do. It's a people's channel. We've run out of time, so thank you very much, Vidura Vikramanayake.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
It's a great pleasure to have had you here today. And Mr. Rusripala, likewise, thank you very much for taking time to come on our network. And I'll leave you with this small thought process then. The strongest people are not always the people who win, but the people who don't give up when they lose. On those encouraging notes, I'll wish you a very good morning, and God bless you. Take care.